what we found tonight was it's chilling. I'm going to share this with you. We're going to start this out with a video on fluid dynamics. And then what we discovered was that the fluid dynamics, in other words, the motion of fluid within inside the eye, actually matches what we see in the night sky with the spinning stars. So I wanted to show that to you guys in this video that I found where they're actually doing actual lab work on spinning dynamics. We're going to look at about 3 to 5 minutes of this video here, and I'm going to talk you through what you're actually looking at. Let's get this to play here. Sure we're connected. Okay, so they're looking at vortices, right? Vortice is just a fancy word for like a tornado. Tornado vortice, basically fluid, how it spins, what causes it to spin. So they've got this tub of water, and they're spinning water, and they haven't done it yet, but they put dye in it first, and then they spin the whole tub of water, and then they can see how the dye actually mixes all together in one color, okay? And they compare that to a hurricane. Then they do another experiment. They use the same dyes, except they rotate the entire tub of water. This is important, and this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about the night sky, how it behaves, because what you're going to see, remember these images, is you're going to see the difference. Now you see the rest of the room is spinning. That's because they're spinning the tub. And something very different happens when you put the dyes in. They don't mix together. Even when they spin the tub within itself, everything stays separated. And I believe this is what is happening with the visual imagery of what is going on in the night sky. Now, as you get this visual and you see that the dye is not all spinning together, I'm going to show you this other video. This is going to blow you away. Now, this is actual stars spinning in the night sky. For those that don't know, you have a very different view of the night sky from different parts of the earth. All of the spinning stars that you're going to see in this video come from the equator, okay? The equator. And the equator is, I believe, is a much different place than you could imagine. There's something happening at the equator in terms of why and how you perceive the night sky. It's telling us something. God is encoding something in that because it's different than your sky would be at the North Pole or we'll call it the South Pole, but I don't think it's a pole. They're very different places. Now, let me explain to you what you're looking at. Let's pause this here. This is at the equator, and what you're seeing is the North Pole star, which does not move, and the South Pole star, which does not move. And I believe those are the anchor points to the truth. God knew that people would look in the sky and go, wow, those stars don't move. And I wonder if the rest of the stars are really moving, or is this some type of optical illusion? And that's what I'm getting at here. I believe that the Bible is absolutely correct when it says the stars are fixed in the firmament. And I think everything else we're looking at is fluid dynamics as well as mirroring effects of the actual firmament. And we're seeing motion in the stars where there really is none. Proof are the pole stars that don't appear to move at all. All the stars move around the pole stars. This one's behind here. But at the equator, this is what you're seeing. You're seeing stars going vertically. You're seeing at the North Pole star spinning clockwise, and at the South Pole star spinning counterclockwise. Look at this. This is just fascinating. So this is the night sky, and you can see it looks very fluid. It looks like the fluid dynamic video that we just watched. But yet people aren't admitting that there is a fluid above us. The Bible tells us the waters above and the waters below. The Bible tells us about this. Now, this all points back to our eye model, and this is where things get very interesting, because I'm going to show you, I'm actually going to show you fluid dynamic videos, or actually images. Let's see, here it is, which seem to match both of the videos that I just showed you. They seem to match the fluid dynamics of dye and water, as well as the spinning stars in heaven. Let's make sure we're connected here. Appears we are. Very good. Is this it? No, actually, this is it here. Okay, so this is an article that was done. The eyes have it. Biomechanical models explore disorders of the eye, setting the stage so that you understand basic fluid dynamics, how fluid moves, and how the stars seem to move like the fluid in our eyes. So here are the fluid dynamic videos. Someone took dye. They wanted to see how fluid moves around in the inner eye. This is it. And pull this up here. And what you're seeing is nothing short of fascinating, because what you're seeing is what appears to be these swirls, eddies, currents in pairs, just like we see in the night sky at the equator. Now, what I did is I'm going to superimpose this over the inner eye Earth model. For those of you that are new to the channel, the inner eye Earth model is what we've discovered as being what appears to be the inside anatomical structures of the eye, seem to mimic and give us clues about the true shape of our universe, our planet, exactly how it's all put together. And it's not a stretch, because many of these ancient models that were given of the firmament look like the inner eye. It's just nobody put the two over each other to actually see what's going on. This is someone put all this together. This isn't my work here, of actually what it looks like at the equator. It only looks like this at the equator. As you go further north, the pole star becomes more prominent in the sky. So if you go north, the North Pole star becomes more prominent. You start losing the South Pole star, and then when you finally get to the North Pole, all you see is one big circle. You see this. You see Polaris. When you go to the south, you see the south. Now, this has biblical overtones as well, and we're going to get into that as well. What I wanted to set the stage for you guys and show you that. Here it talks about moving north. The farther you go north, the higher in the sky, you will see the North Celestial Pole and the stars around it, which is what I just showed you there. Close up some of these windows and close this video. All right, let's keep going with this. Now, for those of you that come to my channel, you've seen the inner eye Earth model. And again, this matches models of the firmament that we've already been shown, that people accept. They accept Earth within the firmament. This has been accepted, but for some reason, people can't understand that that looks exactly like the Earth model. The eyes of the firmament models we have, let's pull those up so I can do a quick comparison for you guys. Ancient firmament images. A lot of these go back almost 1,000 years. Some of these firmament maps. Here's the most popular one. This is the eye. This is what you're looking at. For some reason, I see flat earthers always use these images. You know, they use these images in their work, but they never show you that this looks exactly like what the inner eye would look like. It's like they don't want to make the connection. even though God created your eye, and it definitely encode your eye with this knowledge, right? I mean, to me, this is a slam dunk. This is the inside of your eye. Let's go back to the image here. That's what it is. Here's your firmament around the edge here, and here's your Earth. Now, what's up for debate is this Earth flat or is it slightly convex lens? To me, that argument really doesn't even need to happen, because the importance of this is that God fashioned our inner anatomy after the truth. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter the exact nature of this. Some people would say this is flat, but then I would argue, well, it could be flat, but also it could be a convex lens. The two are almost synonymous. If you think about it, even a flat Earth has mountains, very high mountains, many of which might be higher in the middle than they are on the edges, which would make it a convex lens general shape. So to me, all of the other stuff is semantics. It's arguing, needless arguing, and stuff like that. So what you're going to recognize here is that I basically superimposed this image of the fluid dynamics, the studies that we saw on the actual dynamics of the fluid inside of your eye, how it actually moves. Before we zoom in on this and show you how this works, quick review. There is a inner chromatic aberration in your eye. When the light comes in, you get this haloing effect around images for some people. This also occurs with cheap lenses on glasses, cheap lenses on cameras. They create this chromatic aberration. It's a rainbowing effect. So there's your rainbow. People are like, okay, well, if this is the Earth, where are all the elements that match what's going on here? Well, I just showed you the rainbow. There's also the planets in the solar system. Those become the floaters in your eye, remnants of bits of things floating about inside your eye. Those are called floaters, and those become basically outer space, which basically is just a void. It's not this massive expanse is what we're told. It's a void, and we're at the center of it. And so there's another element that's accounted for. We also have this 23-degree tilt of the Earth. And it's actually not the Earth that's tilted, it's outside the Earth. It's the eye. It's the axis of the eye is actually tilted from your vision going straight forward, from your visual tilt. Your cranial tilt of the eye socket is actually tilted 23 degrees, just like the Earth. That's not an accident either. We also have the moon, which becomes this, there's a part here back in the eye where you get this crescent. Some people have a crescent shape, so that becomes your moon. Also, the pinpoint of light coming through becomes the sun. So you have all these elements accounted for that seem to match the inside of the eye. And there's so much more that we covered in another video. But for the purposes of this video, there's your quick review. And now we can show you the fluid dynamics superimposed onto the Earth. Now this smaller, I'm going to zoom in here. Let's see here. We'll be back. We'll open the chat in a few minutes here. And I'm zooming in. So this is the Earth, of course. I used a flat Earth model, but again, this could be slightly convex lens. This ring you're looking at here, this dark ring, is in fact the equator. So I designated this as the equator. And I put the equator on here because I wanted to show you the star spin. Now I'm going to impose the dynamics of the fluid in your eye. This is where things get interesting, because as you see, the spinning stars at the equator, I'll say that again, the spinning stars at the equator are where they should be. If you're standing on this line looking up, the stars spinning counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere above your head. Same thing on this side of the Earth. This is the fluid motion of the fluid inside of your eye, the vitreous humor, as you're standing atop the lens of the inside of the eye. Now I'm going to take the Earth view here, and I'm going to basically turn up the opacity on this so you can see this a bit more clearly. So there's your Earth. And there may or may not be a ring that surrounds the Earth, okay, which would be Antarctica. It's an ice wall, right? The shelf that comes off of Antarctica, they would even admit, is the deepest part of the ocean. It's not the deepest, it's the largest cliffs. The largest cliffs on the entire world are at the edge of this. They call it like a shelf. You can research this yourself. There's a shelf around Antarctica. That would make sense. This could or would be the ice wall. Now, let's turn this back down. So now that you have your orientation on what Earth is, we can kind of zoom. You can kind of turn down the opacity here, and you can see exactly what's going on. So what you're looking at here is basically an image of this at the night sky. Now, this is the kind of stuff you can't make up, okay? I'm simply putting puzzle pieces together. Now, some people could argue the pieces, how do you pull such random stuff out of different places? That's not important. What's important is that the puzzle pieces fit. If someone were to give you a box of puzzle pieces and you put it down, you start creating this puzzle, and it puts an image together, and it all fits together perfectly, and then for that person to deny what the puzzle was just because you found all these random pieces from different puzzle boxes, does that make any sense? Of course it doesn't. But that's what people who look at this information will tend to want to try to, talk you out of this, because they didn't find the puzzle pieces and no one else found the puzzle pieces. So they're in disbelief. Now, if you look as you go towards the North Pole, that's why I have these arrows here, so make sure we're still connected. Good. If you look, you're going to see this arrow moving from the equator. Now, I want you to concentrate on this. This is why I had to close the chat, because I get what happens. It creates a lot of additional questioning and work, because people are asking questions when I'm covering things because they're focused on the chat. And the chat basically is a big distraction from what I've learned from the important work we're trying to do here. We'll turn it on. We'll have fun. We'll talk about this in about another 5 minutes. I'll be done with this presentation. But as you move from the equator towards the North Pole, it says that, and we know from visual observation, that the North Pole star seems to move in the sky and become more and more prominent. And pretty soon it takes over the entire sky, and you have one big circle of spinning stars. Okay. So people are asking maybe, okay, Casey, the stars don't do that. Yes, they do. It's called time-lapse photography. Over the course of an entire night, they move like that. You're not going to just look up and see this spinning. You'd have to use time-lapse photography over the course of an entire evening. So I just wanted to clarify that. I want to make this video as simple as possible so people can understand exactly what I'm showing them. And there's no room for debate or error. So as you move from the equator towards the North Pole, then you get this prominent North Pole star. So you'll notice that the direction of the fluid at the equator is as it is in the night sky, okay? You get this counterclockwise here and clockwise here. But as you move north and this one takes over, there's some kind of an optical illusion that's happening between the equator and the North Pole. That's the only way I can chalk this up that fits in with the fluid dynamics that we're looking at here, okay? And so what I believe is, as you're moving, this is what you're seeing in the sky. Moving from the equator toward the North Pole, you're seeing your North Pole star here, and through this optical effect, this optical illusion, it moves, and then this becomes your North Pole star above your head at the North Pole. And see how it's exactly positioned where it should be. And I believe that is what's going on. And the reason why this relationship is different than these two is because look at the direction of the fluid. It's all the same direction, okay? Now, we've done other videos where we talk about how this whole thing could be some kind of mirroring effect. Okay, this could be a giant disco globe where this whole firmament that's holding the stars is somehow mirroring something. Okay, we're seeing like the opposite or reflections of. Then you have this fluid motion and dynamics, which I believe it or not, is the spirit of God. That's what I think that this is. I think that it when before creation it says the spirit of God moved above the waters, and I believe this is what it was. This vortex where God is moving, and that is what is causing like the stars to spin. Now we're going to take this one more dimension. Here's another pressured flow direction distribution in the vitreous humor of the eye. Again, this is the same motion. Right here would be where your equator is. Here's your convex lens Earth. Okay, mountains in the middle for the flat earthers. Oceans on the outside. Okay, and so here you have the same motion. You have the stars spinning at the equator, out and around. Here's your North Pole star above. But I'm going to take this another dimension. This will probably tie it all in for you guys. Let's close this off here. Zoom this out. Okay, back to this. So you see how closely this resembles accepted flat Earth firmament models that are ancient. These are ancient images. Let's see here. Let's turn this off. And this is where we tie it all home, because the Bible talks about cherubim at the Garden of Eden. And this is what really tied it all in for me. The Bible says, let's let this load up for a minute here. Looked up the word cherubim, and I remembered the verse in the Bible. He drove out man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Now, this is going to blow you away, because I believe this is the tree of life, or was. We're cut off from it. So you see all these tree stumps all over the earth. And I know Mud Fossil is trying to say that there are ligaments to giants, but I think that's a distraction. I think we had it right the first time. They are tree stumps of the garden. There were many trees in the garden. There are many tree stumps all across the earth, these columnar basalt that are all cut off. They seem to be perfectly cut off. That was the angels and the cherubim. They cut all this off. This is the tree of life. This is the narrow gate back to heaven. We can't get there. Here are the tree limbs and branches of the tree. They become the retina of your eye, filled with fruit, by the way, like a tree would be. They're filled with the fruit of the rods and cones, bipolar cells, and ganglion, which very much closely resemble figs, grapes, and pomegranates. The same grapes, figs, and pomegranates that the Israelites found on their scouting trip into Canaan, and they brought it back on a pole, right? They brought the grapes, figs, and pomegranates back on a pole. This is in Numbers chapter 13. Well, this is, I believe, is what they were describing, okay? Now, this goes deeper, because some people believe that these cherubim are the northern lights with their flaming swords. And this would make sense, because at the north, there appears to be a giant flaming sword moving around, spinning, keeping the way to the tree of life. Right here is where it would be. And I think that's a good place to end the presentation. Again, this is the kind of information, the fact that it doesn't ever go viral exposes it for what it is, which is very damaging information to the establishment. They don't want people knowing about this. So they artificially neuter channels like this so that people will never find the truth. And this is proof of it. No one else is showing you stuff like this. This is new information. I hope the word spreads. I'm going to turn the chat on now. Look, they've already unmonetized this. So we'll fix that real quick. That'll probably take 2 days. And like I just said, nothing in that video should have made this unmonetized, but that's what they do. And in monetizing it, it actually censors it as well. It's pushed to the bottom of all the algorithms. And so this is what we do. So let's turn this chat back on and have a discussion with you guys. All right. So I'm interested to hear your perspective on this, what you guys think about this. There's your white picket fence, Alice. And through the lens, life in a bubble. It's all here, and they know it. This is called I think it's called the Serratia Aura Serratia or something like that. This structure here, and it looks like a white picket fence surrounding the lens, seeing life through a bubble. Katy Perry. So, where's the cloud cover? It's the cataracts, right? What is a cataract? A cataract is when this lens gets foggy. There's some type of blood flow. Something happens to the lens as you age, gets foggy, and it gets covered in clouds. And that's exactly what's going on with the Earth. It's covered in clouds, right? So you have so many overlays. It's like pretty much undeniable. Many people get their lenses removed. I've actually talked to you guys about stories of how people have had their cataracts removed, and basically they can see much more brilliantly without their lenses in their eyes. Some people have no lenses. Now all of a sudden they can see galaxies and stars that weren't there before and all this crazy things of the heavens. So that's what's going on with cataracts. So we've got all these things pretty much represented in here. I can tell you this, that basically there aren't a lot of flights. I don't think there are any flights over the southern hemisphere. Okay. That should tell you something right there. Even though there's shortcuts, like you can go from South America, the tip of South America, to South Africa. The shortest route, according to what we're told that the Earth looks like, would be right over Antarctica, right? But it's not. They take us all the way around, like double the distance almost. They'll fly over the Arctic, they'll fly over the North Pole, but they won't fly over the South Pole. You got to ask yourself why. I think there's some visual clues and markers that if people were taking, good note, they would pick up on something and they would see something. There just aren't enough people awake. Just like I show you guys these films and I tell you how it's a biblical retelling and almost nobody sees it until I tell it to you. It's the same thing. When someone flies in an airplane, they're not thinking about, oh, that doesn't make sense. Why is the sun so close to the moon right here? Or why can I see that landmass when that landmass they are telling me is supposed to be 10,000 miles away, but yet I can see it right out my plane window? Or why this or why that? You see something, they don't want us to see something. Okay. That's why they have almost no air traffic over the Antarctic. Right? So you'll notice that the whole Earth is orientated towards the North Pole. Think about this for a second. Think about how the Earth is laid out. Everything just looks right, pointing toward the North Pole, right? The bottom edges are where nobody lives, even though the weather's nice down there and all this, in the just south of the equator, hardly anybody lives down there. If you look at world populations, let's look at a world population map. All of it is focused on the northern hemisphere. All right. World population map. Take a look at this. This exposes it right here. Okay. Images. All the world's populations, the majority of it is focused in this northern part of, it's predominantly here. Now the equator runs like right through right through here. Right through here. Let's view image here. View. Open image in a new tab. There we go. Now this is nuts. Okay, because what we're told, okay, the equator runs right through here. This is Ecuador, or Ecuador was named after the equator. Runs right through here. See this? Why are all the land masses on the northern part of the earth when the equator is right here? Why are all the populations of earth also focused in those land masses? Well, we know why the populations of earth would be focused on those land masses, because wherever you have land, you're going to have more population, right? But the real question is why are all the land masses focused on the northern part of the earth? I mean, this is striking. This is stunning. Below the equator, you're going to have identical weather and all this below the equator as you would have above the equator. Also, it's telling a story, you guys. And the story is the earth is not shaped like we think it is. If it was, you would have equal distribution of land masses. There's a law, I don't know if it's Murphy's Law, not Murphy's Law, there's another law that says if you have an object and you cover it with random patterns, that the patterns should equally distribute. The same would go for the earth. Now, I'm sure they have some geological explanation as to why this happens. They'll say it's because the earth is tilted at 23 degrees and because it's spinning through space through its nose, that the land masses just happen to distribute toward the North Pole. That's not the case. That's scientific mumbo jumbo. Nobody could know how a planet would distribute its land masses. But why are all 80% of the land mass is above the equator? That's crazy. It's because I believe it's shaped like a lens and all of the land is packed around the middle, just like we see on these flat earth maps. All the land is packed around the middle, just like we see here. And this is just what it is. There's just oceans, surrounded by oceans. All the land packed around the middle in a convex lens. That's why all the land masses on the globe map appear to show a very disproportionate focus on landmass in the northern hemispheres. I mean, this is crazy. All you really have under the equator is a chunk of South America, a little chunk of South Africa, and Australia. That's basically it, and all these islands over here. But look at all this. Russia. Now I know this map is off, so these images are a little bit disproportionate because they have to do that when they scroll out the map like this. But most of the landmass is above the equator. What percentage? Let's do this. What percentage of land mass is above. This is called using critical thinking, the equator. Thinking. If you're thinking in terms of what you're told, you don't know how to think like this, okay? But if you think freely without paradigms in your brain of what you're told by other people, all of a sudden this whole new world opens up to you. Land areas are distributed predominantly in the northern hemisphere. Now, I just knew this just from looking at the flat Earth map, but here I'm correct here. 68% compared to the southern hemisphere, 32%. It's double. That's not an accident, you guys. All eyes will see him. Do you think that's an accident? All eyes will see him when the Son of Man returns. Okay? The inference here is there's something more to this. How are all eyes going to see him if there's a globe Earth? How are all eyes going to see him if there's no reflectivity or any kind of effect where we could see him? There's going to be a reason why all eyes can see him. Okay? There's going to be a very good reason. And the whole eye thing, why would they say that? All eyes will see him. Because there's more to it. There's much more to it.